Hey, what's up, guys? Chris here, and that's right, I'm back with something I haven't done in a while here on the channel, a regular video. Well, this regular video is leading up to something that's also going to be available on my channel, but anyway, that's besides the point right now. Also, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button. That way, so you'll be notified every time there's a new video. Of course, you have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. I suggest you click subscribe for all of them. So, anyway, also welcome back. So now let's start the video. So, now, see, years ago, I actually lived in a mobile home trailer park. And prior to that, I've also lived, well, I actually lived in 3 different trailer parks before. One was small, or was like, I think 4 or 5 trailers in it, and that was it. And then I moved out of there, out of that trailer park, and then moved into an apartment slightly after that, which is fine. And then eventually I moved out of the apartment and then moved into a mobile home trailer that was not in a park, that was actually on land that was for rent at the time. So I've done the mobile home living before. Now, I mean, there's nothing wrong with living in a trailer park. I've done it before. There really is nothing wrong with it. And it's better than living nowhere. Now, I did move into a trailer park after moving out of that trailer on land. This was the second time I had moved into a trailer park, but this trailer park was way bigger with a ton of trailers in it. And I had lived there for a couple of years, but I did end up moving out of there eventually for a few key reasons. One, due to some bad neighbors that had lived nearby. That was one of the main reasons of moving out of there. There were other reasons too, but that was mostly one of them. So I did move out of there and then moved into another mobile home trailer that was on land that was for rent nearby. And then I moved out of there, and then eventually, I moved out of there, moved into a rental place that was half house, half trailer, and then moved out of that. And then eventually after moving out of there, I had moved back into a different trailer park on the other side of town. And that was the third time that I had lived in a trailer park. Now, would I live in a trailer park ever again? No. I mean, if you do, no judgment. There's nothing wrong with living in a trailer park. There's also nothing wrong with living in a trailer on land. There's nothing wrong with living in a mobile home trailer, whether it's on land or in a park. There's also nothing wrong with living in a mobile home trailer, whether or not if it's a single wide, a double wide, or a triple wide. It's okay to live in a mobile home trailer. People live in them for all types of reasons. It doesn't have to be anything specific or reason why. Even famous people who have lots of money, even often sometimes will live in a mobile home trailer. by choice. Big difference. But like I said, there's honestly nothing wrong with that, with living in one. It's just, it happens. People really do live in mobile home trailers. It's a real fact. It's also just one of those things, too, that people will actually live in a mobile home trailer for all kinds of reasons. It doesn't have to be a specific reason to live in one. If people want to live in one, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. I've also lived in a 2-story house before. And then ended up back into a mobile home trailer. But except for the one that I wound up in on my land, on my property, is a double wide trailer. Yes, I have lived in a single wide trailer before. And I did live in another double wide trailer one other time before too. So living in a trailer is nothing new to me. Whether it's a single wide trailer, a double wide trailer, or a triple wide trailer. Don't matter to me. It's still a trailer, irregardless. And everything is usually on one floor. That's, the thing about living in a trailer where you don't have a second floor like a 2-story house, which is literally like the only difference. There's not really, well, so yeah, single wides, the difference between a single wide and a double wide. A single wide is just lengthwise way they're built. A double wide, however, is kind of like that, except instead of just one whole trailer, it's 2 halves of a trailer that's usually put together, and that's how it's considered a double wide trailer, usually. Triple wide is exactly the same thing, except it's 3 halves of a trailer put together, and then it's, once all 3 halves are put together, because it can separate and then be put together, they're put together to actually make the triple wide trailer, just like a double wide trailer. Single wide is a little easier. You don't have to worry about it being apart and then put together in order to be a single wide trailer, where it's already set up the way it is. And yes, a lot of the time, a mobile home trailer, depending on the year of it, depending on if it's an older one or a newer one, you can actually get lucky and they can be moved majority of the time. Then there's some that are not exactly just for that. If it's really old, I wouldn't suggest moving it. If it's a lot newer, just depends on the year. Just depends on the year. It depends on the year, like what year of the mobile home. Like, it just also depends on its age. If it's a certain age, I guess it's okay to move it. If it's older than so many years to move it, I wouldn't exactly recommend that then, in that case. You can actually get them brand new too. You can go right through the manufacturer Or you can just call around or call the place that actually makes them, where they're actually built. Or you could actually get one through real estate. A lot of the time, if it's in a park for sale and it needs to be out of there, it can be moved onto land. You can do that too. Or sometimes you can get it through real estate where it's already on that land and it just happens to have a for sale sign. You can do that too. There's more than one way to get your hands on one, if you're wondering. It's just very interesting how very interesting how there's more than one way to get your hands on a mobile home trailer. Whether you're looking for one brand new or still somewhat new, not exactly brand spanking new, like right out from the fresh from the factory or manufacturer. But yeah, there's all kinds of ways to get your hands on one. And of course, there's also some areas where they may not have those type of homes available. Where meaning, nope, you either have to have a 2-story home or an apartment or a condo or a bungalow. And things like that. Because I know it just depends too on the state you live in and the area, like the city and town that you live in. Some areas don't allow mobile home trailers at all, and others do. Of course, now there's also some areas that'll allow you to have a tiny house, and then there's some areas that will not allow that at all. Just for example, I'm just throwing that out there. Besides, now another thing, some areas, you could also, just depends on the area, that state, city, or town, or whatever. You could also live in a camper, RV, travel trailer, things to that nature. Some areas will allow that, some won't. It just depends. Of course, another thing, I've seen people do this on, what was it? YouTube. I have seen this on other content creators' videos where sometimes they'll end up renovating. A lot of the time, they'll usually get their hands on a school bus that's usually for sale that no longer brings children to school. A lot of the time, they'll often get their hands on those, and they'll usually end up making them very livable on the inside. I've seen it on YouTube. It is a real thing, but some areas I don't know if they allow that or not. I'm sure some do, some don't. But then again, it just depends on the state and the city and the town that you happen to live in within that state. But yes, there's all kinds of possibilities. And, you could also, if you choose to, now I'm saying you don't have to live in a mobile home trailer necessarily. Just like, you don't have to live in a tiny house necessarily. You also necessarily don't have to live in an apartment. You don't necessarily have to live in a bungalow. You necessarily don't have to live in a condo. You necessarily don't have to live in a 2-story house. You necessarily don't have to live in a camper, RV, travel trailer, an old school bus. But, there's lots of options for things that you could live in, like almost any home, literally. Like, yeah, I mean, you can live in a two-story house. You could live in a mobile home trailer, double wide, single wide, triple wide. You could live in a modular home, which is, it's like a double wide, but I guess it's like the next step up from a double wide, where it's 2 floors like a regular traditional house. And yeah, you could also live in a bungalow. You could also live in a condo. You can also live in an apartment. You could also live in a tiny house. You could also live in an old school bus, like some YouTubers do. But like I said, there's so many possibilities of what you could live in. And sometimes you can live off the grid, too, is another thing I've also have seen on YouTube that other content creators will often do. And that's very interesting. Now, I mean, you don't have to go live off the grid necessarily. I mean, you can if you want to, but you don't have to necessarily. Well, like I said, there's all kinds of ways, places, and things you could live in, believe it or not. Well, I know what you're probably thinking. Are you 100% sure about that? Yes, actually, I am. But it doesn't matter what you're living in. It doesn't matter what city you live in, what town you live in. It doesn't matter what state you live in. These things don't matter. As long as it's your home, whether you own it or rent it, either way, it really doesn't matter. And, I mean, if you're renting it, yeah, that's fine too. Even though you don't have ownership of it, that's okay. You don't have to have ownership of it necessarily. But, I mean, I know sometimes there's deals to where it's rent to own, where you pay rent there for a while, and then eventually you end up owning the place. That's a good option too. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's better than nothing. But that is a possibility as well. But like I said, even if you're renting a place, you can make it your own on the inside. Decorate or set the decor up in your home however you would like. Or if if you want to set something up like what I have here with the horror icons. Or you could do something completely different. It's up to you. Whatever fits your style, you could literally do. But like I said, there are so many possibilities for things. And, some places I know you can do a lease. And then sometimes you can renew them, other times you can't. It just depends. But like I said, there are so many possibilities of places you could live. It necessarily, and like I said, if you're living in one place, and if you want to move, whether you're renting or buying the place, it doesn't mean that eventually you can't sell it and move. Same thing with renting. Even if you're renting a place, it does not mean that eventually you can't buy a place slightly after to move into. It also doesn't mean that you can't. It doesn't actually necessarily mean that just because you're renting one place, say you found another place to rent, so you moved out of one rental into another, doesn't mean just because you're in one rental that you have to stay in it necessarily. No, 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 no. At least when you rent a place and then something else is available for rent, you can always move to rent another place. That's not actually a big deal. It's not a big deal. But like I said, there's there's all kinds of things and options out there that you could do for different places and different things to live in. It doesn't matter. But like I said, there's all kinds of things available. There's all kinds of ways to literally live in something, whether you own it or rent it. Except, of course, now if you do own something, a lot of the time you have to pay taxes. But renting, I don't think you have to worry about paying property taxes. If you're renting, I don't think you have to worry about paying that. I think you just have to worry about making sure your rent is paid on time. Because a lot of rentals, if you don't pay after a certain time, after a couple times, if you don't pay about a few times and it keeps happening and happening and happening, eventually the property owner / landlord is going to evict you, and then that means you have to be out within so many days, and then you have to go look for, unfortunately, another place to live that's for rent. And that could result very badly in a few ways. Yeah, say you didn't pay it for a while, and then the landlord was trying to be nice, and then was like, well, you know what, you didn't pay me, now I'm going to evict you. You could wind up going to court over that. That's just another thing to keep in mind. But if you're current on your rent and have paid, and say you're moving because you want to move into another place that's for rent, as long as your previous rent was always paid, I think you'd be fine when it comes time to move. Or say if you're buying a house or buying a home or buying some type of place to live in, just make sure that you pay your rent on time, and just make sure if you do buy a place to own that you're going to live in, that's going to be your own home, that you own it, just make sure that you pay your taxes. But like I said, there's so many possibilities. And, a lot of the time you can also get a mortgage a lot of the time if you need to. There's several options with that too. There's such as, you can also do a first-time mortgage, which I'm sure if you're a first-time home buyer, or if you've bought a home before when you were a first-time home buyer, say you made your mortgage payments until the place was paid for, or say you still owe a little bit left on your mortgage, but you've been current with the payments, and then say you're moving into something else, and you have say you have the money to move into another home that you want to purchase, that requires the mortgage, and say you have enough money for that, for the down payment with the mortgage, or say you have enough money to make sure that mortgage is paid before a certain amount on that mortgage is paid, so you can buy the home. You just continue to make the payments, and done, and boom, done. Before you know it, you will have ownership of it. Or sometimes when a home is for sale, a lot of the time what you could do, say if the owner has say if someone is selling their home and they still owe their mortgage, if they still owe the mortgage on that specific home, and you want to purchase the home for the sale price that it's listed for on the listing for sale, say you want to pay that, because If you pay that, it's yours, and that'll take care of what they owed left on the mortgage to pay it, because they were selling it because obviously, you know, they may want to move and buy something else too. But like I said, you know, there's all types of possibilities to consider with that. It doesn't necessarily have to be one option and that be that. Of course, you know, you could also do this thing too, to where, say you, for example, sold your home and you got the money for it in your hand, and then say you were wanting to purchase another home. What you could do, say that cash was in your hand from selling your previous home, so you could purchase a new one or another one. You could literally, if you wanted to, pay all cash for the home that you want to buy if someone still owes the mortgage on it. And then before you know it, that money will pay that of what was owed left on that mortgage. And then your home was paid for. Therefore, you can move in, and then you will not be stuck with that mortgage payment. Now, the person selling that home may be stuck with a new mortgage payment on their new home as well, where you wouldn't have to worry about that. If it was a cash deal, you could have it free and clear. That is another option too. If you can't get approved for a mortgage, then I would maybe look into that. Or if that don't work, maybe just stick with the rental. And I understand, you know, some landlords are great landlords, and then there's some out there that are not so great. I understand that. There are a lot of slumlord landlords out there too. So just keep that in mind. Or they'll tell you, oh, you know, I'll fix this, I'll fix that. And then when it comes down to it, they ain't fixing a fucking thing. And then it's like, wait a minute. You told me you'd fix this shit. But now when it comes down to it, you don't want to fix it? And I'm paying you rent on this property? I don't think so. You know, a good landlord would fix the problem. Or, you know, sometimes what a lot of them will do, they'll fix something one time while you live there, while you're living there. And then say, for example, while you're also still living there, say something else needed to be fixed. You tell them about it, they ignore it, never fix it, never get around to it. Oh, but when you move out of there, right after you move out, as soon as you're gone, they will fix whatever needed to be fixed. They'll fix it, get the place ready to re-rent it out, and put the for rent sign up. It happens. That's exactly what they do. Best, by the way. So, just if you are renting any type of property, just be careful that you don't end up with a slumlord landlord, or they know the place may be in very bad condition and they're still going to rent it and still charge you the rent on it, even if it has some code violations, or if it's got mold in it and they know about it. There is a chance that they may know about that and they will still rent it out to you, charge you the money to rent it, you'll pay it, and then you're stuck paying for something that's got mold. They know about it, but yet they don't care. Things like that, and code violations and things that need to be fixed, they may tell you all, I'll fix it, and then never get around to fixing it. But as soon as you move out of there, don't be surprised if all of a sudden the problems are all fixed, the code violations are all fixed, the mold's suddenly gone. Yeah. You will be surprised with what they will do after you move out. And as soon as it's empty, they will make sure things are fixed and taken care of up to code to re-rent the property back out. You would also be surprised at how quick they will put the for rent sign back up on that property. It happens all the time. Well, that's all I wanted to just jump on here and say quickly. And also, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.